Well, I like to start with I became HIV positive in 1992. I found out when I was in prison um, that I was HIV positive. I knew from my experience that it was probably true. What I didn't expect was the fact of me living so long. I hoped that I would. I just didn't realize it at the time. I did not consider myself to be a candidate for being HIV positive. And so when I found out that I was, something in my mind told me that something wasn't right because I was working as a sex worker. Because I was a top, I didn't feel as though I fit into that category. I was not a everyday IDU drug user. I maybe once a month was shooting cocaine. Unfortunately, I was not the one injecting myself. I was always injecting someone else. And I saw them clean the syringe out with the bleach in the water. So at that time, I assumed that doing it once or twice did the job. But my experience is that once I became HIV positive and they gave me my result, because I was in prison, I was somewhat ashamed and did not want other folks to know. I just prayed that I would not die in prison. I was on parole violation, and this was my second parole violation. So because of my HIV, that led me to say, I don't want to be put on parole anymore. I want to discharge. And so I had 4 years left. I had already done 6 years, maybe 7 years already on it. It was a 25-year sentence. So what I decided to do was to discharge. So I told them in 4 years, open the door. Once I got out, I just assumed that God heard my prayer and said, okay, I'm not going to let you die in here, but you know you got to die because you're HIV positive. So I didn't want to be around my family. I did discharge, and I went back to Greensboro, North Carolina, where my family was. But I didn't tell anyone. They never gave me medicine while I was in the prison for my HIV condition. Never took labs or anything of that nature, and I never asked them, so they never gave it to me. I assumed that I had maybe a year, maybe two at the most once I got out, because 4 years had went by. And I was on a expedition to do as much as I could as far as making myself feel good. And so I indulged in alcohol and drugs. I traveled from state to state. I knew that I was going to die, so I didn't want to die around my family. So I became homeless. I left my North Carolina. I traveled about, and I ended up in Florida. I pretty much stopped all sex contact. Sometimes here and there, but no penetration. And as I said, I worked as a sex worker. So I allowed men to have oral sex on me. And so after staying about 2 more years close to 3 years, I still wasn't dead. And I was draining myself, doing the drugs, doing the crack, doing the coke. And so I started to realize, well, damn, maybe they lied to me. And so a friend I had, who was my partner, friend at the time, he had been to California. And he told me how the situation was. You get out there, GA, and said about HIV, and I hadn't told him that I was HIV positive at that time. And he was just having oral sex on me. He wanted me to have anal sex, but I declined after I told him he understood why. Long story short, when I got to San Francisco, me and him, we came to San Francisco on a $99 bus. And when I got here, I tested again at a church. And I was drinking my stamina was slowly diminishing because I was drinking in the morning and drinking at night. And so, and he was a drinker as well. I did some of the other things which he didn't like for me to do, but I did. Eventually, I said, well, let me get tested. They was giving a $20 incentive, so that helped. And I tested again, and it was 4 of us that went in, and they told me to stay back. So the person who tested me told me what my status was, and it really hit me then. I was just hoping and praying that it wasn't these 7 years. By now it's 1999. And the tester revealed to me their status and told me, because at this time I'm crying and I was thinking of jumping out the window, but I knew with my luck I wouldn't die, I would just break something. So, said something, told me her status, and said she had been HIV positive for 15 years. And I'm like, shit, you look strong as a baby bull. And we laughed. But what she told me, she said, Willie, if you stop doing what you're doing, or slow down, and start taking care of yourself, she said the drugs and the alcohol have to stop. Because you have to start taking care of yourself. And at that moment, and I told her about that I had 4 sons, and she said, you know what, if you take care of yourself, she said, you'll die from a truck hitting you before you'll die from HIV. And it was a sliver. It was smaller than a mustard seed. I felt there was a sliver of hope because of my past, and because she had told me that she had had it for 15 years. So I was like, well, shit, if she can do it, damn it, I know damn well I can. And it was that small sliver of hope that eventually had me say, you know what, Willie, you need to get in the program because you can't stop on your own. And what I had done is I asked God to take the taste from me. And so I'm still drinking, but I'm not getting high. I'm just passing out, having grandma seizures. And finally, one day I said enough is enough. And I had procrastinated about going to this program. Eventually I did. I went to a program called Walton House. And there was a counselor there who took me in. And she said, I'm going to love you until you are able to love yourself. And her name was Glow Wright. And she passed last year. And this was from 99. And She just passed in 2011, but I want to get ahead. So anyhow, I went through the detox, and they said I had to go to another facility. And she said, if you want to be able to take care of yourself, she said, you got to find out what it is that you're running from. So I went from there. I went to this other facility for 90 days. And again, I had a phenomenal person tell me, you got to find out why you wanted to kill yourself. It's like, kill myself? Motherfucker, I ain't never wanted, I thought about it in prison once, and thought about it when they gave me my result, but kill me, no, not in my... Anyhow, and he told me his story, and he said that get you a passport. He said how he got a passport and how he was stuck in the TL for like close to 6 years. And his family was well-to-do, but he decided to stay in the TL. And so this was another motivation. And he said, it was 50 in our group, and he said in a year, 3 of y'all will be ones that, it'll be 3 of y'all that won't relapse. In 2 years, it'll only be 2 of y'all. In 3 years, it may be 1. And so when he said that, I said, I don't know about the other 2, but I know I'm going to be the one in 3 years. I finished that program. I came back to Walton House, and I found out about HIV and hepatitis C, and also found out that I had HIV, I had herpes, I had syphilis, which I thought had been cured, but because I was a drinker, I didn't finish my medication in 10 days. It never left. So now I've got HIV, hepatitis C, herpes, and syphilis. Hot mess. So I continued doing what I was doing, working my program, helping others. And I learned to start liking me. And I started learning to finally grow up and be a little bit responsible for my actions. Walden House had broken me back down and built me back up. Gave me the steps to build myself back up. And after I done that, I started reaching out and helping others. Because I didn't try to think about where I got it from. Was it from the sex? Was it from the IDU? Was, where it came? Didn't think about that. I just got into my mind, I have it, and I didn't want to give it to anyone else. So there's certain precautions. So I had told myself I had to be abstinent. And so that's pretty much what I done. I'm not saying I wasn't interested. Yeah, I did a lot of masturbating, so. And finally got to the point where I bought my little porn DVD, 8 tracks. I still got them. VHS, and not 8 track, VHS. And so, because so many people had stepped into my lives, the light came on that you need to stop worrying about you. You're taken care of. For how many days that be. I was no longer living on the streets. I was no longer homeless. I was no longer doing dope. So I was like, you know what, Willie, you have to do what other folks did to you before you got here. All those times I was homeless and out there doing what I was doing, there was always people helping me, and I couldn't understand why. I was like, this got to be a catch. Why are these people being nice to me? And, I'm trying to get as much as I can from them, but they were genuinely nice to me. Didn't want nothing back. And so it started dawning on me. I went to the AA and the NA, each one teach one, and all those cliches. But it was generally in my heart. And that's what I said, this is what I need to do. Maybe this happened. This was God's plan, because I got on my knees and prayed. That, Willie, you know, I'm allowing you to live because there's something you need to do. And if you keep living, it's going to come to you. And so that's what I felt. That's what it was. And I finished that, and I went back to the place where I got tested, which was called Glide in San Francisco. And I wanted to be a peer educator. I wanted to help others and give them the information so they didn't think like myself that someone else would get HIV and not me. Because I had learned, you know, the 5 ways of transmission. I learned about Hep C. I took every kind of course I could. And so I did get a job. I got a job at Walden House as a counselor, night counselor. And eventually I got another job at Glide as an HIV tester. Well, right before I got this job at Glide, or during that period, I met a young lady. I was living in Oakland because I couldn't afford San Francisco. And I would not allow them to put me in seedy habitation. I didn't want to be put up in no hotel or no, what you would consider to be the ghetto or bad neighborhood. So I elected to live in Oakland. It was a young man. He had bought a home, and he needed a roommate, and so that's what I did. He was a recovering addict, graduate of Walden House, and him and I became good friends, and I moved in. And I used to catch the bus, the night bus. I worked from 11 to 7, and then I worked from 8 to 4. Worked at Walden House, night shift, and then I worked at Glide. And so one of my sons had contacted me, and he wanted to come out and live with me because he was having a rough time. He had got put out. He had a dispute with his mother's boyfriend, and so I kept telling him, I can't help you until I'm able to help me. And so it was on one of these times on the bus, there was a certain young lady who used to ride the bus, and she was sort of the head honcho of the bus. And her and I got involved, and I didn't know exactly how to tell her. You know, as I said, I was bisexual. And I was HIV positive, and I had gotten my syphilis taken care of. I had gotten, I was not taking HIV meds, but I did, was seeing my doctor every 3 months. And I got the syphilis, and I got the medication for the herpes. And so eventually I told her, we were friends, and before we started dating, I said, she said, "You're such a nice guy." I was like, "Well, I'm from the South, whoop whoop." And so as we became more and more friends, I said, there's something I need to tell you about me. And she was like, "Oh, okay, well, what is it? You're a bank robber, you're just too nice, and I can't understand why, and I always know there's something." So I told her I was HIV positive. And she looked at me and said, "Oh." And so we talked a little bit, but not too much, and told her I was doing all right. I wasn't taking the medication. My T cells were great because I had learned all the HIV lingo and things. And so I told her I'll see her tomorrow. And she stayed maybe a couple of blocks from me. I didn't quite know where she stayed. So eventually we started seeing each other. A couple of days went by, and I got to thinking about it, and I had